Lately, I've been thinking a lot about solidarity, that feeling of unity, like real mutual support, shared purpose, all that. It seems like it pops up everywhere, right? From those massive social movements you see to just everyday stuff, how we treat our friends. And then you bump into these philosophical discussions, and whoa, it's way deeper than you thought.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a term that gets thrown around in all sorts of contexts. How people organize for change. What makes a workplace function well, or even these huge debates about what holds a society together.
Exactly. And you sent over some seriously interesting material on this whole solidarity thing, thinkers looking at its history, intricate arguments about like what it is at its core, and then these dives into why it matters. Or maybe why it's not always what we think it is.
Right. You really went for some heavy philosophical stuff there.
I did. I kind of went all in.
Well, for this deep dive, I think our mission is to really try to get what philosophers mean by this word solidarity. Like trace how it's evolved as an idea and then grapple with some of these big questions. The nature of it, its value, maybe even some of the downsides or criticisms people have.
Okay, so we're going beyond the surface level, trying to get to the philosophical heart of the matter. Just to give everyone a sense of what we're working with here, you sent over some rigorous philosophical analysis, some historical context of how the idea has been used in different times, and how solidarity plays out in like real social and political stuff.
Right, real world stuff.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, starting point, as philosophers might, what is solidarity? Like, what are we even talking about here?
Well, right off the bat, there's a distinction philosophers make between solidarity among and solidarity with.
So solidarity among, that sounds like within a group, right?
Yeah, exactly. The connections within a group. And a lot of the sources emphasize this idea of a kind of symmetry in the attitudes and dispositions of the people in the group.
Okay, so they're kind of on the same page.
Yeah, they're aligned. So like think of resistance fighters.
Okay, yeah,
They would probably share a common identity,
of course.
shared goal of, liberation,
Right.
and they're willing to mutually support each other in the struggle. There's this sense of shared risk, shared purpose.
Yeah, a real we're all in this together vibe driving them to act. Now, how's solidarity with different...
Solidarity with is more about a relationship between an individual or a group and some other group.
Right.
And they might not have that same group membership, and the symmetry isn't necessarily there.
Okay.
Like the classic example is donating to earthquake victims.
Sure.
You're acting in solidarity with them, but they're not like actively doing the same with you. You wouldn't expect them to. It's more outward reaching.
Right. It's a different kind of connection. But there was some debate, right, about whether this solidarity with is really genuine solidarity philosophically.
Yeah, some philosophers, like San Giovanni, raise that question. His argument is that this kind of one-sided aid, it can undermine the egalitarian nature of solidarity. He also says that solidarity with, in that sense, might not be that different from, just charity or humanitarian aid. So why use a different word if it's not capturing something unique?
So for him, real solidarity has to have that mutual give and take, that equality.
Right. But then you have others, like Kohlers, who go completely the opposite way. He argues that solidarity, whether with or among, has to be unilateral and asymmetric.
How does that fit into this whole standing together idea?
So Kohlers is saying in the most meaningful cases, one group, often the one with more privilege, defers to the needs of the less privileged group. It's less about we agree on this specific thing and more about we support you and your goals, whatever they may be, out of respect.
So you're respecting their autonomy as a group.
Exactly. His example is heterosexual people supporting same-sex marriage rights. They might not have a personal stake in it, but they support it because it's what's important to the LGBTQ plus community.
That's interesting, especially when we think about allyship. Listening to the priorities of the disadvantaged group, that really resonates today.
It does, and Kohlers points out that even well-intentioned support, if it's from a group with more power, it can actually reinforce imbalances.
Ooh, okay.
So for him, genuine solidarity is about setting aside your own agenda and really listening to the needs of the other group.
Okay, so two very different philosophical takes on whether this asymmetry works with solidarity. Going back to solidarity among, some sources say this means a specific kind of unity within a group. What makes it more than just people being in the same place?
The unity and solidarity among is about the connections, the attitudes, dispositions, actions. It's deeper than just the basic definition of a social group.
Right. The basic definition was like self-identifying as members, emotional connection to the group, and some shared understanding of how the group is seen.
Exactly. So think about employees at a huge company. They might all be employees, right?
Yeah.
They have some feelings about their workplace, get how the company's viewed, but that doesn't mean there's solidarity.
So what's the missing ingredient?
One key thing is the willingness to put the group's good above your own self-interest. Van Paris uses these simple examples, like a traveler returning a lost wallet or a cyclist helping another with a flat tire.
Right.
It's that could be me thinking, leading to help.
Yeah, it feels right. But there was the critique that this definition might be too broad. What was the issue there?
The worry is that it could include any responsibility from being in a group.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is helping a coworker with a regular task because it's your job the same as that deeper act of solidarity? It gets blurry.
Right, yeah, I see that. So some argue we need a more robust definition. Shelby's view was one. What's his take?
His robust view has 5 parts: identifying with the group, special concern for members, sharing values and goals, loyalty to the group, and mutual trust. He's saying it's more than just liking the group or belonging, it's what makes collective action happen.
That's a stronger connection than just helping out now and then?
Right.
But I remember some sources questioning if even that definition is enough for solidarity. What were those?
Well, one critique was, is it still too inclusive? Like a book club. They identify as a group, care about each other, love books, are loyal, trust each other's opinions. But would we say a book club is in solidarity?
Hmm. Maybe not in the way we usually mean it.
Exactly. It pushes the meaning. And also, does there always have to be action? Can 2 siblings living apart who are very close but don't do projects together be in solidarity?
So is it about being or doing? Interesting. Now, Schultz had a different angle, a very political one.
Right. She sees political solidarity as being against something. Injustice, oppression,
Mhm.
tyranny. For her, a natural disaster might bring people together, but it's not this political solidarity she's interested in.
Okay, so it has to be tied to social and political change.
Yeah. And she also says that kind of solidarity comes with moral obligations.
Right.
So a white supremacist group, even if they're acting together, wouldn't count for her.
Because the aims are morally wrong.
Exactly. It's a very moral definition.
Right. Now, San Giovanni, we talked about him with solidarity with. He also has a view on solidarity among. It's somewhere between Shelby and Schultz. Less strict than hers, but more than Shelby's.
Yeah, so he agrees with Schultz that it's about overcoming a shared hardship, but doesn't have to be political, like a village rebuilding after a fire. He also explicitly says that solidarity is the collective action, not just a thing before or after it. And unlike Schultz, he doesn't really focus on the morality of the aims. Even a group doing bad things could show solidarity if they meet his other criteria.
Okay, so shared struggle, collective action, sense of shared fate, commitment to overcoming something together. But there were challenges to his view too, right?
Yeah, few. First, like the others, his focus on collective action, it leaves out those individual acts, like the Good Samaritan. Second, it might not fit those quieter forms of solidarity, like Simone Weil giving up sugar during the war to be in solidarity with soldiers.
Right. No big collective action there.
And then, how about those protests organized for a group, but without that group's involvement? Like protesting a refugee camp closure, but the refugees themselves aren't organizing it. For San Giovanni, the protesters might be in solidarity with each other, but not with the refugees.
So finding one definition of solidarity that everyone agrees on seems tough. We have this whole range of ideas from really broad to very specific, all trying to get at different parts of it.
Yeah, it's multifaceted for sure.
Yeah.
And to really understand it, we need to see how it's been used in history, in different social situations. That helps us see what people actually meant by it and maybe evaluate these philosophical ideas.
Right, because it's one thing to define it in theory, but then it's like, how does it actually work in the world?
Exactly.
So the material shifts to solidarity in practice, starting with socialism. That seems like a natural fit.
It really is. The late 19th century, especially in France, was huge for solidarity, becoming a key concept. And it was totally tied up with early socialist thought. Thinkers like Owen, Saint-Simon, Fourier, they were all pushing back against what they saw as too much individualism, too much competition in those new market societies.
Okay.
They were all about cooperation and mutual aid, especially to help the working class dealing with industrialization.
So solidarity was like their rallying cry. Let's come together for each other.
Exactly. Renaud even titled his book on Fourier's ideas Solidarité. Now, Marx and Engels, they were critical of these utopian socialists, but they did use the term solidarity, especially when talking about workers' associations uniting to fight for their rights.
Okay.
Like in Marx's Amsterdam speech, Solidarity was key to achieving revolution.
So even if it wasn't like a central idea in their big theories, it was definitely there in their actions and speeches.
Absolutely. And later, Kautsky, another big Marxist thinker, saw solidarity as coming from class consciousness.
That moment, workers realize, hey, we're all in the same boat here.
Exactly. And that's the basis for organizing, fighting for better conditions, a fairer society.
Okay, so solidarity from the get-go was linked to the working class versus capitalism. Now, what about civic solidarity? How is that different from this class-based view?
Civic solidarity, which also got big in late 19th century France, it's about solidarity between citizens within a nation-state,
Okay.
often connected to welfare states. It's less about fighting against something and more about being part of something. Key figures here are Bourgeois and Durkheim.
Okay, familiar names.
Bourgeois, he led the Solidarist movement, and he had this analogy.
Oh, I love analogies.
He compared how the organs in a body depend on each other, calling that natural solidarity, to how labor is divided in a society.
So different parts of the body need each other, just like different people and groups in a society.
Exactly. But because society is made up of people who can think and choose, for Bourgeois, this natural interdependence needs a moral solidarity.
So we're responsible for each other.
Yeah, shared responsibility for the well-being of everyone.
I like that.
And he said that individuals have this social debt to society, past and present, for all the knowledge, resources, and opportunities they've gotten.
So we owe something back.
Right, and that means supporting things like social welfare and education.
It's like a social contract based on this shared responsibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Durkheim, he also talked about solidarity, right? He made that distinction between mechanical and organic solidarity.
He did. And his idea of organic solidarity, it fits this civic context. He said it's the main type of social glue in modern societies, where work is specialized. So unlike mechanical solidarity in more traditional societies, which is based on shared beliefs and lifestyles, organic solidarity comes from our interdependence. But Durkheim says interdependence alone isn't enough.
We need something more.
Exactly. We need a broader moral solidarity that goes beyond laws and rules. He was worried about things like anomie that's feeling lost, or a breakdown of social norms, then force feeling exploited or pressured, and disuse, not having enough meaningful work. All these things, he thought, could weaken the social fabric.
And he thought those professional groupings, the corporations bringing together employers and employees in the same industry, could help fix this.
Yes. He believed these groups could rebuild solidarity at a more functional level. By connecting people doing similar work, they could create a shared purpose, manage working conditions, and strengthen those social bonds that were getting strained.
Okay, so both Bourgeois and Durkheim, they're saying civic solidarity is about recognizing we're all connected in a society and actively building those social and moral structures to support that and ensure well-being for everyone. Now, national solidarity seems to be on a different level.
It is. In the 19th century, nationalists started using solidarity a lot to talk about national unity, especially when facing threats or working towards national goals.
Right.
The foundation here is a shared national identity.
That sense of as a nation.
Exactly. And it often relies on this idea of an imagined community based on shared culture, language, history, and often a story of past struggles.
So transcending class and other internal differences to be a united front, especially against some of them out there.
Yeah, exactly. Renan famously talked about a nation as a great solidarity built on a shared history of sacrifices.
Powerful stuff.
It is. And Mazzini, very influential in Italian nationalism, saw national solidarity as the thread connecting people's efforts across generations towards a big national project. And that focus on shared identity and purpose is still key for many nationalist ideas today.
Wow. Okay, so moving on to Christian solidarity. How did that idea develop?
Solidarity slowly became important in Christian thought, especially for Catholics, starting in the late 19th century.
Okay.
Pope Leo III Thesis Rerum Novarum in 1891, it focused on workers' rights, but it also talked about mutualism in worker groups.
Interesting.
He even used parts of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, emphasizing fraternal support.
So the church was also realizing people need to come together and help each other, maybe partly in response to those socialist movements.
Yeah, could be. But it was later, especially with Pope Paul VI, the Popularum Progressio, that this global interdependence and social obligation got really tied to a universal human solidarity.
Okay.
He argued that as a global family, we have moral duties towards each other, especially the most vulnerable.
It's like taking it to that next level.
Exactly. And this idea comes from Christian solidarism. Thinkers like Pesch saying that despite differences, all people are fundamentally comrades or socii because we depend on each other.
I like that. Comrades.
Right.
And John Paul II, he really ran with this idea of solidarity, didn't he?
He did. In Solicitudo Res Socialis, he defined solidarity as a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good, rooted in recognizing how we all play a part in society's work and how unjust systems make people suffer. And it's all linked to subsidiarity, making decisions at the most local level, and Pope Francis's idea that social participation is key for true solidarity.
Okay, so Christian solidarity, it comes from this idea that we're all connected as humans and there's a strong moral duty to work together for the common good, fighting suffering and injustice everywhere.
Yes.
Finally, we come to solidarity and social movements, which feels super relevant today.
It is. Modern social movements, whether they're about anti-colonial struggles, racial justice, feminism, LGBTQ plus rights, whatever the cause, they've all wrestled with this question. What's the basis of solidarity?
Like, what brings people together in these fights? Shared identity, shared experience of oppression, shared goals, or all of the above?
All of that. And the feminist debate around sisterhood is a great example. Early on, it was all about this universal shared experience of being a woman.
Yeah.
But that gets some serious pushback.
Right.
Because it often ignored the experiences of women of color, working-class women, and others. It centered the experience of white, middle-class, cisgender women.
So it was sisterhood, but with some pretty big blind spots.
Yeah, exactly. And thinkers like Lord, Collins, Hooks, the Combahee River Collective, they really challenged this idea of one universal female experience.
So it became problematic because it didn't acknowledge how different forms of oppression can overlap and impact women differently?
Right. The alternative was to ground solidarity in the shared condition of oppression, saying that, yes, women experience it differently, but this experience of being under patriarchal structures can unite them.
So it's more about the shared struggle.
Right. But even that approach has been criticized for potentially excluding people or not getting the nuances of different identities.
Right. It's still a work in progress.
Definitely. And we see similar debates in discussions of Black solidarity.
Yeah. What unites Black people? Is it a shared cultural identity, a sense of Black nationhood, or the shared experience of racism?
Exactly. That tension between ethnocultural identity and shared oppression as the basis for solidarity is ongoing. Thinkers like Garvey, Muhammad, and Malcolm X in his later years lean towards the Black nationalist view. Others, like Baker, Ransby, and contemporary scholars like Mills and Shelby, emphasize systemic racism as the unifier.
So the basis of solidarity is still being debated and refined within these movements.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we've looked at how solidarity is defined and how it's shown up in history. Now the big question, what's the value of solidarity? Is it just a tool to get things done, or is there something good about it on its own?
It's a big philosophical question. It's pretty clear that solidarity has practical value, instrumental value.
It helps groups achieve their goals.
Exactly. It provides support for the members, there are benefits from shared knowledge, and it builds strong relationships. But the tougher question is whether it has value in itself, aside from the outcomes.
Non-instrumental value, as the philosophers say.
Exactly. And we talked before about Forst's argument that it can't be inherently good, using the mafia example.
Right. If criminals use solidarity for bad ends, can it be truly good?
That's his point. He thinks the value depends on what it's used for. Many agree with this, saying solidarity is only good if it helps achieve good things.
Okay.
But then there's the counter-argument. Maybe groups like the mafia aren't showing genuine solidarity because they're missing something morally good.
So maybe true solidarity has to have a moral compass.
Yeah, that's one perspective. And there's also that feeling that even feudal solidarity, where people fight for a good cause but don't succeed, still has some inherent value.
Right, that we stood together, feeling, even in defeat.
Exactly. And there's the idea that when injustice does end because of people acting in solidarity, there's something special about that, beyond just achieving that one goal.
Like a deeper human power coming through.
Yes, that collective agency.
So if solidarity isn't always good in every situation, could it be valuable because it's part of something else that's good?
That's a great way to put it. The material looks at two approaches, the individualistic and the collective or relational. The individualistic approach is like virtue ethics. It says that having those solidaristic attitudes, like being committed to fighting oppression, is good in itself when it's the right response to something bad, like injustice. White supremacist solidarity, again, shows why this matters. A hateful solidarity isn't valuable.
So it's about having the right character, the right motivations, and this applies to solidarity among and solidarity with, even in our own minds.
Exactly. But the collective approach looks at the value of doing things together. Kohlers, for example, says that groups in solidarity, even if they fail to reach their goals, can show a better way of relating to each other. The value is in how they act together.
So even if you don't win, the way you work together can be valuable on its own.
Yes. And Sanjivani talks about the value of joint agency, that feeling of accomplishment and shared understanding you get from overcoming something as a group. But he also says this value depends on whether what you achieved was actually good.
Right. So it's not just about doing anything together, it's about doing something worthwhile.
Exactly.
Okay, so the value of solidarity isn't simple. It depends on the situation, the goals, and the relationships involved. Now, what about the challenges to this whole idea?
Yeah, good point. We have to look at that.
So the sources talked about theoretical challenges and practical ones. The theoretical ones question if the concept even makes sense.
Right. One big theoretical challenge is the argument that solidarity is too incoherent as a concept. Some, like Luhmann, even say it's an outdated formula of ideology, meaning it's lost any real meaning.
Like a word everyone uses differently, so it means nothing.
Exactly. If we're all talking about different things, maybe it's not useful for philosophy. But others push back. They point out that there are common threads in how the word's used, like shared identity, facing some hardship together, supporting each other.
Okay.
They say we can be more precise by looking at different types of solidarity, political, civic, social, and so on. And they remind us that many other big concepts like freedom, justice, they're all debated, but we still try to understand them.
Right. Just because it's messy doesn't mean it's useless.
Exactly.
Okay, what's the other theoretical challenge?
It's the argument from redundancy.
Yeah.
Basically, do we really need solidarity as a separate concept? Can't we just use ideas like altruism, community, loyalty, justice, equality?
Right. They cover similar ground. Why add another word?
Exactly. But those who like the concept of solidarity say it does have unique things that those other words don't fully capture.
Okay.
Like solidarity often has a specific goal and involves choosing who's in the group.
Right. So it's more focused than just a general feeling of community.
Yeah. And the obligations from solidarity, they might feel stronger or more immediate than just regular morality. So even if solidarity overlaps with other ideas, it's still useful for understanding how we connect and act together in certain ways.
Okay, so solidarity as a concept has its critics, but there are strong arguments for why it's still a valuable tool for thinking about these things. Now, onto those practical challenges, right? Even if the concept makes sense, what are the downsides of solidarity in action?
Right. So one big challenge is how solidarity relates to individual freedom. Those who prioritize individual freedom, like Judith Shklar, worry that strong ideologies of solidarity can lead to oppressive systems where the group's needs always trump individual rights.
It's like that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few idea taken too far.
Exactly. So the demands of unity and loyalty might silence dissent or discourage individuality in the name of the greater good.
Okay, so solidarity taken to an extreme could be bad for individual liberty.
That's the concern. But people who see solidarity as a good thing, they push back. They say solidarity and individual freedom aren't always enemies. In fact, solidarity can be necessary to fight injustice and protect freedom when it's under attack.
Yeah.
Like, a group of people resisting oppression is more effective than individuals acting alone.
So in those cases, solidarity actually safeguards freedom.
Right. And they also point out that a lot of the fear of oppressive solidarity is focused on top-down, state-controlled versions like aggressive nationalism. But solidarity can also come from the bottom up, like in social movements and civic engagement.
So it's not about forcing people to conform, it's about people freely coming together for a shared purpose.
Exactly. And this civic solidarity, like Bourgeois talked about, it can be about interdependence and creating fair institutions together, not about everyone thinking the same way.
Okay, so again, it's about what kind of solidarity we're talking about.
Yes.
Exactly.
Another challenge we talked about was whether solidarity can encourage false beliefs. This seems relevant to national identity.
It is. The argument is that national identity, which drives national solidarity, often depends on and promotes a skewed or even false view of the past. It's done to create a strong feeling of unity, but the question is it ethical to base social cohesion on things that aren't true?
And this isn't limited to nationalism, right? Like any solidarity based on shared identity or experience can maybe overemphasize those things and ignore differences or dissenting voices within the group. It's like that sisterhood debate again.
Right, that focus on one universal experience of being a woman could hide the very real differences between women's lives.
It's like a simplified, romanticized version of solidarity.
Yeah, and it misses the nuances.
But some say solidarity doesn't have to be based on lies. It can be about emphasizing real aspects of shared identity that people genuinely connect with. And they have some say in what's important to them.
Right, exactly. And there's also epistemic solidarity. The idea is that sometimes, especially when dealing with the systemic injustice, being in solidarity with those who face similar challenges is actually how we learn the truth about the situation. Trusting those who've been marginalized can challenge the dominant narratives.
So solidarity can help us see the truth more clearly, not just reinforce existing biases.
Exactly.
The last challenge was about solidarity being exclusionary. It feels inevitable that if you have an in-group, you also have an out-group.
It's a fundamental tension. Solidarity means having special commitments to those within the group, and those don't usually extend to outsiders. Samuel Scheffler calls this the distributive objection. He says special relationships like solidarity can act as moral tax shelters for those inside the group.
Okay, so you feel less obligated to those outside the group because you're already fulfilling your obligations inside the group.
Right.
So it makes you wonder if strong solidarity with one group makes us less responsible to the wider world.
It does. But there are counter-arguments. Some say solidarity's obligations aren't just about the relationship itself, but about deeper values. Like the duties of a job role also serve wider moral goals.
Okay.
Plus, remember, lots of solidarity is found among the oppressed, not the privileged. And in those cases, those special duties within the group are seen as necessary to fight for justice in an unequal world.
Makes sense.
And finally, it's generally thought that even the strongest solidarity duties are still limited by universal demands of justice and basic human rights.
Okay, so it's a balancing act.
It is.
So solidarity might lead to excluding others, which is bad, but it doesn't mean solidarity is always bad. It just means we need to think carefully about who's included and excluded.
Exactly. The relationship between solidarity and justice is complicated.
It definitely is. Well, this has been a truly deep dive into solidarity. We've looked at its many definitions, its history in different movements, the debates about its value, and all the challenges it faces. It's clear solidarity is more than just a nice-sounding word. It's a big, complex idea with a long history, and people are still arguing about it.
For sure. And as we've seen, there are no simple answers to what solidarity is or if it's morally good. It gets at these core questions about being human in a social world.
Exactly. And it really makes you think about your own experiences, both giving and receiving solidarity. As you were listening, what parts of this resonated with you? What questions came up for you about the groups you're part of, how you relate to others, and the power of collective action in your life or in the world?
Maybe what makes solidarity so powerful and so tricky is that it's tied to what it means to be social. We're always navigating between our own needs and the needs of the group, finding unity despite our differences.
That's a great point to end on. It definitely encourages us to keep thinking about how solidarity shapes how we understand community, belonging, and responsibility. And this is just a starting point. We've only scratched the surface of this topic. There's so much more to explore.
A whole world of philosophical ideas and historical examples.
Exactly. So go deeper, look up some of the thinkers we mentioned, and keep thinking about these things. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.